say. There's no telling where the guys will take you. Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you. Better watch out, it's gonna ruin the plot. Real spoilers. Real spoilers. Real spoilers.
Broadcasting from the lush but not lavish studios located in the basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Snarkitude, this is Real Spoilers, episode 795, Furiosier.
A milestone.
A mile.
It is a milestone. It's been a while.
It is.
It's been a while.
Nope.
Oh, what?
We'll have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Oh, we used to do that. Did we get that cease and desist finally?
Well, also Aaron loses a scumbag, so that guy doesn't. Yeah.
I always think that's a Nickelback song.
It is not.
Oh.
Yeah.
But
that is an Aaron Lewis song. Well, I guess it's Stain
What's
song.
the Stain? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess let's go around the table and everyone can introduce themselves.
This is Joe.
This is Kevin.
And this is Tom, and we have a guest this week. If you're into gaming and pop culture collecting, you've probably seen our guest on shows and documentaries like Nintendo Quest, action figure adventure, video game box art, the stories behind the covers, and Collector's Call. He's a passionate video game historian, treasure hunter, and arcade repair expert. He also has a new podcast in the works. Please welcome Patrick Scott Patterson, but we call him Scott. Hey, Scott, how's it going?
It's going all right. I'm glad to be here, and thanks for having me.
I'm surprised you have time. That's a lot of
That's
stuff.
a lot of stuff.
Oh, that's only a fraction, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we could be here. It'd be a whole other episode. Just I've worn a few hats, and so but like I said, it's I'm getting into the podcast game myself, and so I appreciate the invite and to come on here and kind of get my confidence back up a little bit, and try to do a few less oohs and ums than I was doing the last one. I guess the other day.
well.
That's what the editing's for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate to tell you, we're on episode 795,
Still do it.
and we're still trying to work on the ums.
That's why he chose us to get his confidence
Yes.
up, right? He's going to be like, look,
Yeah.
here's 800 of these things, and this is where they're at? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
I'm
did one a
good.
few weeks ago and listened back to it, and there were a lot of ums, and you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, come on, I can't be
that's-
doing that.
Well,
so,
you just got me and Joe's number. He's
Yep.
I'm and together.
That's exactly right.
I'm sure I'm going to completely stop. I've just cursed myself anyway, so we're okay.
But we appreciate having you here, and I'm big into the gaming stuff, and Scott always pops up in all these documentaries and movies and shows, and I thought he would be a great guest to, kind of reach out to that community. And I was rewatching Nintendo Quest. That is one of my absolute favorite video game documentaries, and I didn't remember you're the first interview on that film.
Yeah, I shot with them twice. It was fun shoot. We shot at San Diego Comic-Con in 2013. That was right out there on the floor. And then again down here, in my town of Denton, Texas, where, Jay finally came down for part of his hunt. And I had a nice little surprise for him, and I'm glad it worked out because we were one of the last stops down here. And so at that point, it's, for those that aren't familiar with the movie, Jay is on a quest to collect every licensed Nintendo Entertainment System game without using the internet in 30 days. And so he traveled all over Canada and U.S. to do that. We were one of the last stops. So it was like kind of the challenge. I was like, well, I don't know. Because my fear was if I don't have a game that helps complete his collection, that segment's not going to make the movie. I was like, so at least I was already, we already shot at Comic-Con, right? But it's like, okay, luckily it worked out, and I had a nice little surprise for him, and that was a fun movie. It was, it's interesting how that thing has had such tremendous legs that, it's over a decade later, and people are still watching that. And you're saying it yourself, it's one of your favorite video game documentaries, which to me, I just think that's really cool. It's really cool to have done something that has lasted like that.
Absolutely.
Aren't there a couple Nintendo games that there were only like 100 copies of or something?
There's copies that were recalled. The last one that not to spoil, but go watch the
It's been
documentary.
a
for sure.
decade. I think
But
you can do
I
a
know.
little bit.
Well,
The
that's
show
true.
is called Real
Oh,
Spoilers.
is that why we call it?
Yeah, we've been doing this for a while.
Now wait a minute, that documentary is not on a reel, so technically,
I mean, if that's what we're doing, we have screwed up royally.
yeah. But no, I mean, there's games that are like $30,000. There's crazy
wild.
games, and that's part of the fun of the documentary. Is like it starts off and he's checking them off the list, and he can find all the
You can burn
the
through 'em
Mario
pretty easy,
games,
yeah.
and you can start getting them. But towards the end, and it starts getting really stressful, and you start to see Jay kind of get down, and he's like, I don't know if I can do this, and it's a really good documentary. It's really fun if you remember the old Nintendo games, and it totally holds up, like we were saying. And the cool thing is they've got a new documentary called Nintendo 64 Quest. So he's going to try to redo
man.
the whole thing with N64. And last time I checked with you, Scott, you weren't involved yet. Is there any more word that you might get involved in that one?
We chatted about that a little while back. There hasn't been any reconnection so far. So
Okay.
they know I'd like to be part of it. I think it may be a scheduling type of thing or what have you.
Sure.
But I've worked with the producer Rob McCollum on a few things. Video game box art, that was another one. I'm part of Faking Filmation, which is a fun documentary about a guy trying to get a fan-made He-Man cartoon, released legally without getting shut down. And I've already shot for that, but ironically, that movie itself is in, just the legalities alone, just getting that out, is slowing that down a little bit. And then, of course, I was in the second season of Action Figure Adventure, which was also done by them. So there's a lot. That one, Jay, is again, he's trying to do the ultimate toy charity auction. So he's going around the toy stores and collectible shops trying to find some iconic action figures and make some deals so he can go have this successful charity auction. And I appear in there a few times as well, season 2. You can watch
That's awesome.
a lot of these on Prime Video. So if you haven't done that out there, you can do that now.
Yeah, that's
Well,
Not
not
right now.
Yeah, right.
Watch this first, and then go set that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Rob does great shows. I hope you're involved with the next one, but I'm excited you're involved with this show. So thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me here. Let's get
Well,
started.
before we dig into the film itself, some shameless plugs. Don't forget we're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeart. Wherever you find a podcast, you can find us while you're there. Be sure and follow us so you never miss an episode. Maybe leave us a review. It's super helpful. It's good for our egos, which need to be larger. And you can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/realspoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. It's called the League of Show Sharers because we are hoping you will share an episode. People who were kind enough to share an episode last week include librarian Cynthia, Phil Timon, Jason McLean, Travis Tewitt, Tammy Lynn Powers, Betts, Chris Valls, Chris Magic Man, Dustin from Nerds at Night Gaming. That one's fitting. Ralph Tribble, Richard Krotzer, Tom Dowdy, Julianne Jordan, Heather Sachs, Edit Photo Gamer, Binge Movies, Spoiler Piece Theater, David Rojas, In Session Film, Geek to Me Radio, Nostalgia Cast, Mike and Oscar, The Film Bee, Ronnie Castle, Colby Mack, Minorities Report, and Matt Neglia. So thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it. Also, don't forget we have a Patreon, patreon.com/realspoilers. It's $5 a month. You get all sorts of bonus content, and we like you extra.
Do you want to tell them what we're doing, or we're gonna save it?
Oh, for Patreon?
Yeah.
Oh, we can tell them. So if you want to join our Patreon, we've gotten through the Avengers.
Yep.
It took us longer than it took Marvel to get to the Avengers, but we finally got to it. And we decided with the buzz and the re-release of Phantom Menace that we're going to check out the first of the prequels, Star Wars: The Phantom Menace.
I don't think I've seen this since the theaters.
Really? Okay. So
no.
it should be fun.
Definitely.
I
Not.
mean, we'll see if it's fun, but
yeah.
discussion
Yeah, put that in air quotes.
Big old air quotes.
discussion should be fun.
I remember trying to convince myself that it was good. Walking out of that theater, I was like, "Man, this is great."
Hey,
See, I was old enough to where I could walk out and go, that wasn't good. And everybody's all like high-fiving.
You're wrong. It was
I'm like, uh-oh.
Let's be fair. It has its moments. I mean,
Yes.
obviously we can all talk about Jar Jar Binks and the fact that it's sort of space C-SPAN at times. But, it has its moments too. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, for sure. I mean, if
hot
nothing else, pod racing
Yeah.
and the lightsaber
And the
fight,
lightsaber
Duel of the
fight.
Fates.
Yeah.
I mean, those two things alone over the years, when I would test a new TV or home stereo system,
Oh, sure.
I would always put on those scenes because they're iconic, they're filmed well, they sound great. So, we've got that to look forward to.
Yeah.
I'm just laughing because, like, I'm of the age when you wanted to test a new TV.
With a record?
You would you'd put on like Time Bandits. Like, that was.
Hey, that's a great movie.
I
I love Time Bandits.
at the mall. They're making a new one.
oh, like
for
a,
Apple
like a,
TV,
like a remake or
Yeah.
a sequel?
I think like a remake
Gross.
for Apple TV. It's gonna be a
Gross.
show.
That's terrible.
But I remember at the mall there was a store called Video Concepts.
Okay.
and that was like the badass video stuff where you could go and look at the latest
like tech.
breakthrough technologies and
Yeah.
Laserdisc players.
Did it have
you
a
know?
wall of all the TVs?
Yeah,
like
and
the
they
20
had
TVs lined
one
up?
of those big screen TVs
With the
like,
projectors?
in the cabinet with a projector.
Yeah.
You could
Yeah,
like
yeah,
wave your
yeah.
hands in front of the lights and make it. And like they were,
If you got too close, you couldn't see anything. 'cause-
yeah, they were
Or
always.
someone turned the lights on.
Yeah, right.
And
Like,
they
hold
were
on, I turned the
always-
lights on. It's like, well, okay, now I just missed like the key scene of this movie.
Yeah.
I just missed
They
that
were
big
always-
touchdown play. Thanks,
They were
guys.
always showing Time Bandits on that thing.
That's
Every
funny.
time
That's so funny.
It was Time Bandits. So, and then we would get kicked out because we didn't have any money.
yeah, right.
They're
Get
like,
out of here.
You're 12. You're not going
Like,
to
well,
buy
I
any
want
of
to watch
this.
Time Bandits. I
Get
love
out.
this movie. It was that and The Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
That was
were like
boring.
were like the two that were like the weird out there movies that I watched as a kid. Time Bandits is wild.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does. No,
Explains some things.
a lot.
And don't forget, we have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/@ampersand $.
Maybe this is why
No
we're not
spoilers.
getting any new subscribers. Tom adds a bunch of
It's
extra
not Tom's
characters.
fault. It's YouTube's fault.
Turned it into a GeoCities page.
At
But-
Angel Fire /
But we're pretty new to the YouTube thing, so we've been doing this podcast 11 years. But our YouTube channel has, I think, 485 subscribers or 475. So we're something like 20 subscribers away from 500,
We're right
which
there.
is the next milestone we're trying to get to. So if everyone that's watching, if you could give us a subscribe on there, again, you can still listen on your podcatcher, but it does help us if you have a YouTube account. And I mean, it's Google. Who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
And throw us a subscribe, and hopefully we'll get to 500 soon.
another milestone.
That'll be a real milestone.
That's true. That's fair. I'll give you that one.
So anyway, there's all that. Let's dig in.
As I'm sitting there watching this movie, I start thinking about George Miller, and what a
79 years old.
but what a very odd career, right? Like he's done all of the Mad Max movies, Happy Feet, right? That was
Yeah,
him,
Babe,
Babe,
Big in the City.
and that's it. Oh, I think there's one more in there. There
Well,
might be.
he's made some other movies, but the ones he's known for are the Mad Max movies, and then Happy Feet and Babe felt like, whoa.
He does not really diversify.
He's made some Australian
guess-
films.
Well, that's
that,
very diverse.
I guess
Yeah.
that's true. I guess Happy Feet and
That's the-
Babe are very different from Mad Max.
That's the thing that shows. It's like he's a great director. There's certain things that he loves and
Yeah.
worlds and characters he likes to
It's like
play
Bob
with.
Clark, who did Porky's
A Black
and
Christmas.
Christmas.
Black Christmas.
and
is-
A Christmas Story.
yeah. And Black Christmas.
Yeah.
right.
So like that, but yeah, his ability to. Now I will say, I think this one was more CG heavy than I anticipated, given the last three,
I
right?
think
4.
I think that Fury Road is an impossibly high bar to set because that movie is like a 10 out of 10 action movie. It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
this-
they liked it so much they showed clips in this.
Yeah.
Well, but if you go back
this movie's biggest flaw is that it's not Fury Road.
100%.
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
if you're holding it to that standard, then it's going to be impossible. But this movie, I think, makes a fantastic part 1 of a part 2 journey for Furiosa. The things he builds up, and you get insight into her background and the way that they pay off to where it feeds right into part 2, which is Fury Road. I mean, I think it's masterful. And again, its only crime is not being Fury Road.
Right.
The stunts are incredible. I think it looks incredible. I don't think it looks as good as Fury Road.
It does not.
I think they were forced with COVID that changed things. And,
Oh, sure.
I think they were maybe forced to film a little differently, but
I think they
still,
also didn't want to take 10 years to make the next one.
you can't,
Right?
you know,
Like-
right. And
Right.
so they were forced to do certain things, and there's certain things that like you just can't put Chris Hemsworth in a rig going 90 miles an hour with flamethrowers thrown
Yeah.
at it. I mean, you just can't, right? But
Right.
George Miller still has a way to stylize things in a way to where it's like, oh, it's not that it looks like bad CG. It looks like his stylized Mad Max action.
I don't know that scene of him in like the rig at towards the end when they're trying to get out of Gastown does not look good.
Katie thought the same thing. So
Yeah,
my wife
it does
Katie
look a little
went with me,
weird.
and she looked at me, and she was like, "Oh, that's bad or whatever." But to me, I'm just like, I don't know. It feels hyper stylized. Like if you watch a Robert Rodriguez movie or 300, or there's a style to it. And so
Yeah.
to me, it did feel like a Robert Rodriguez green screen effect, but also it fit into the Mad Max world. But I agree. I wish everything could be practical, but
I don't even think everything has to be practical. I understand augmenting it with CG or
yeah.
doing whatever, but there are certain things with CG that they just haven't figured out yet.
Sure.
Right? Sometimes some people can figure out animals. The Jungle Book, I think, is a prime example, or even The Lion King, as kind
Sure.
of boring, I think, as that movie is.
No, but the CG.
But the animals, the lion, everything looks fantastic. The dogs in this did not look good.
Oh, see, I
Like
didn't.
when they jump, I
just
don't know.
didn't-
Yeah, it
Interesting.
didn't take me out of it, but it was noticeable
Sure.
when they jump out of the car. It's like, well, those aren't
Well,
real.
I mean, especially with animals,
That's
and,
true,
in these
and I think
dangerous
I
situations,
gotta
you
tell
just
ya,
can't use
I
real
think we're going to
animals.
see that more and more. I
Oh.
think they're probably going to get away from using real
Yeah,
animals altogether.
It's dangerous.
Yeah, like Planet of the Apes was like that. I was-
Can you believe it?
Yeah, Kevin Durant. Like it's good for him.
But so did Scott? I'm curious. Did you grow up with the Mad Max movies? What is your history, or do you have any love for this series?
Well, I remember the original movies. I was quite young, and my parents were a little weird about what movies they would at that age let me watch or let me not watch. So I didn't get as much with the Mad Max movies back in the day as I did a lot of other films. But when I got older and watched them, I very much appreciated them and what they were trying to do. And I think it's fascinating that it's come back, in the modern day, because I want to say maybe the original ones were a little high concept, maybe for the era they came out in, which is why, while they had popularity, I think that, some people maybe didn't quite get it. And nowadays,
there was
people are a little
nothing
more-
like those movies when they came out.
Totally.
Like
Yeah.
that, So like, even if you go back and they don't seem as good as the hype, you have to like look up what else came out that year,
Right.
And then you'll be
Right.
like, oh,
Right, very, very
Exactly.
different, and arguably a little ahead of the curve. And
For sure.
So while we all have a little bit of fatigue with movie franchises that are getting reboots or remakes or modern versions of it, I think maybe this is the right time for this. And I think too, it was there's a good gap of time between Fury Road and this as well, which is I think helpful. Or at least I would hope it'd be helpful as far as the studio and the box office would go. And speaking back to what you're saying with the interesting resume, it'd also be wild if this whole thing is building towards like a Babe Mad Max crossover. That
it's
would
a
be-
shared universe,
right? For all we know, we haven't seen the full story just yet.
That would be
What
Wide
if-
Babe Happy Feet Mad Max.
What if Babe caused the apocalypse?
Oh
There you
my
go.
gosh!
That they're
I mean, that
living
would be
through.
a twist.
Because
Yeah,
they
radioactive
ate him and he
Right.
had a disease. Yeah.
right?
they all got
Oh.
swine flu.
The swine
Oh
flu.
my
That's
gosh.
what it is. But it is fun to think he almost directed the Justice League.
Yeah.
Like there was a whole.
He was the Army
he
Hammer
was-
Batman. Justice League, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where that and there's concept art. I think there some.
Speaking of eating things you shouldn't.
That's
Oh,
also true.
yeah.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
Or admitting to it. Maybe just man, what a dummy.
But I mean,
But
a George Miller Justice League. could have
That's
been
what I'm saying.
really cool. looking
Like
with
I
his
think
action.
that could still work. I think
Oh,
if
for
they were
sure.
to bring him in, now.
Well, I mean, you better do that quick.
That's true.
But
I mean,
again, the guy's 79 though, and when we talk about, I mean, sure, they couldn't film everything practical, but they still filmed a lot of
lot.
things practical in this
Yeah.
movie. And this guy, I mean, we're talking about at 79, and then we have a guy like Jim Cameron, who's I think almost 70. He's a little bit younger.
Yeah.
And look at them doing these action movies that are doing it like no one else. These guys have been doing it for 50 years.
True.
And they continue to understand action, and
Well,
it's
they
like
keep pushing. I think
But there,
that
if you look close, you can see the age thing taking its toll. Because there was the one scene where Furiosa had her blinker on for
the
10
whole
minutes.
time,
Oh, yeah.
just like
time.
and you're in the open road. Where are you
Yeah.
gonna go?
Like, what
You
are
know?
we doing? The road just goes back and forth. That's all it does. It's like Lawrence of Arabia. Watch everybody run to the right. Watch everybody run to the left.
Even the trees walked in those movies.
Well, and I wonder if the more of a reliance of CG in this one may have also have been studio based.
That's true. That's a
we
great
are
point.
we are in an era right now where I think more and more studios and theaters are starting to recognize that you really have to make these movies into these epic events that are only best enjoyed on the big screen.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, you're going to have to really get those visuals going. And practical effects, as awesome as they can be, and as much as they can hold up when they're done excellently and done right, they still have their limits. And I'm wondering how much of that might have been, some studio pressure, because, I was a little bit surprised at just how much CG was playing in here. But at the same time, can you imagine the challenge of making some of those shots practical effects?
Well, I was thinking of
the amount of time and budget it would take to do that and everything else. So I'm wondering
and
how much of that comes in.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because I do think at least in the original Mad Max world, and even in Fury Road, I don't remember them going to like towns. And if they were towns, you didn't see the entirety of the town, right?
They went there. You knew
went
about
into
Bullet
a place,
Town, you
and
knew
then it was
about
like a set.
Gas Town, but it was more from a distance. Where
Thunderdome.
here, it's cool that and
Well,
that's
beyond it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's a great segue into something that we touched upon with our Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes review, is that the world building in these films. I mean, some people are like, oh, that people that are not down with this movie are like, oh, they could have done this in a flashback or whatever in Fury Road, but it's like they fleshed out all these answers of like, how does Gasoline Town operate? How does Bullet Town work? Where did
Well, I didn't really answer those questions because
well, no, I mean, we see it. I'm just saying, like, we got, like, sure, we've seen them before, but we've never been into them.
Yes, that's true.
I think
That's
for
true.
world building, that's interesting, and to see where Furiosa came from, the green place that they're trying to get to in Fury Road. It's like, oh, she came from there. We get to see it. We get to see the mothers, when they were still living in that area.
The Citadel, you mean?
No, in the green place, like the mothers that we see in the desert
wives.
in Fury Road. And so I just think the world building's phenomenal, and he gets it with everything from the names to the weird costumes, a motorcycle chariot.
That was cool.
Right?
It seemed like a waste of fuel.
Well, I think
fuel
but
is so precious.
But I think that goes to Chris Hemsworth's character, right?
Yeah.
Because
Dementis.
he's an idiot.
Yeah,
He's
for
just,
sure.
I mean, he's a crazy idiot, and that's so. Of course, yes, it would be a terrible use of fuel, but he's an idiot.
But also it's like, well, maybe they can't like supercharge one huge engine. They don't have the technology. But if you pull three of them,
Well,
then
I don't know the freight, not the freight.
he's
train.
not a Morton Joe.
I guess that's
You know
true.
what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's
Like,
just like he's a
guy
scoundrel.
They're scrapping stuff
Yeah,
in the
okay,
desert before
okay.
we'll get into it. But he takes these places over. But the imagery, like the world building that he creates, all these vehicles, the characters, the outfits, the names, Scrotus. It's just the stuff.
Scrotus and Rectus.
The stuff, yeah, the stuff that he comes, Scabus, Scrotus, and
former professional wrestler Nathan Jones
is that who the big guy is?
plays Rectus. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think the world building he does and has continued to do is phenomenal, and it's great that he has been able to see the Mad Max franchise through from beginning to end.
I honestly don't think anybody else could do it.
no, I mean,
Seriously,
it would be an imitation.
unless they
Yeah.
get like Denny Villeneuve.
I assure you.
Well, yeah, he can take over any franchise.
I assure you, they will try.
Well, eventually.
You
They probably
Probably.
will. That's
Yeah.
the thing about seeing something through from start to, I don't want to say finish. I don't want to
Right.
put a curse on it or anything, but
yeah.
No, you're totally right
it's-
though.
The studio's going to sit down and look at it and be like, look, we got to keep going. And so yeah, I could definitely see that in the future. It's obvious to me that this is something that they want to keep with right now.
Yeah, it's also interesting to see a director stick with a property this long.
He
I mean,
loves it. Clearly, he's not.
the
he
only
doesn't
one that I
need
can
to
think of
make
is Scream. Like Wes Craven directed 1 through 4, which is kind of wild to think
Well-
about when Wes Craven's probably at his
yeah.
height.
Well,
when
Lucas,
the first one.
going from Star Wars
Wasn't
and then
directing it, but he was obviously
Yeah, he was part of it.
the
Well,
showrunner.
yeah,
and,
yeah,
then,
that's
and
fair.
then Phantom Menace, to come back when he directed the prequels is the main
Tried
thing.
to kill
So
his own franchise.
he directed Star Wars, and then he oversaw the next two, and then he directed the prequels. And so to until he sold
Did he
it,
direct all 3 of them?
yeah,
He did.
prequels.
He
Yeah.
did? He
right?
did? He-
Scott Lucas directed all the prequels.
Well, his name was up there in big,
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he
letters,
didn't. He
so.
only directed the first, which most people, unless you're a nerd, don't know he didn't do all 3
Yeah,
of
that
them.
was Irvin Kershner and
Lucas
that
made
was-
the prequels exactly what he wanted to do. And,
Richard Marquand.
Marquand, yeah.
Okay.
He was able to see his vision through, and even though he took a little break, but was still overseeing the property. But George Miller, like Lucas, is like, he has a vision for it, right? Lucas had a vision for all these different episodes and chapters and everything. And
Unlike Lucas's vision,
oh, wow, this is a very good vision.
his does not. continue once the movie is over.
Yes.
Like he leaves it alone.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and you
So-
got to think these guys, they create these iconic franchises, and then they have this time to think about what they would have liked to have done originally.
Yes.
But the technology and the film techniques and all that didn't really exist then that exists now. And that's got to plant a seed. That's got to start kind of burning after a while, and you got to go back and revisit it. How many of these concepts are we seeing that maybe they would have liked to have done in the originals, but it just wasn't practical
sure.
to do it back
Yeah.
then. And
That's a
now
great
you
point.
have all this amazing, technology and editing techniques and stuff that just didn't exist. They were like unfathomable back then. And now
Yeah.
it's like, oh shoot, now I can do this. I can make this vision, and they work that into their project. I think that's hopefully one of the reasons that we start seeing a lot of different continuations and reboots. I know it's not always the fact, but it's nice for me to think that this could be kind of living out a dream that they had for, in some cases, years or even decades.
Yeah. I really hope George Miller is going to get the opportunity to make more of these movies, not just because of his age, because hopefully he'll be still with us for a long time, but the movie was projected originally to make around $50 million over the 4-day Memorial Day weekend, and now it's looking at more like 35 million for 4 days.
That's a problem.
But it's not. I want to say it is not a reflection of the quality of this film. Moviegoers have changed, and I hate seeing it online where it's all this gloom and doom and a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now people thinking about seeing it are like, oh, this didn't make any money, it must be bad. But the fact is, people are not going to theaters.
That's exactly
it.
Right.
And so it's like, you can't compare. They say, oh, this might be the lowest Memorial Day weekend box office
in 40 years.
In 40 years. Yeah. But 40 years ago, there wasn't Netflix. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
it's also-
10 years ago, there wasn't Max and Paramount Plus.
The
and
other thing is, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, there wasn't a global pandemic that changed
Yeah.
everything.
It just changed viewing
This is
patterns.
Disney Plus.
D-
And
but
they
it's not.
screwed themselves
But
over.
that's exactly it. Is they made, not they, but like they, being the studios, made us. Not us, because we're going to the theaters.
They
anyway.
trained-
they trained people to not go to the theaters.
If I
now-
didn't do the show, I would hardly ever. go
Right.
to movies.
It's
I don't know. That's maybe.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
seeing a lot of this in all forms of entertainment. I've heard people say this about, some of the top cable shows, and they're like, oh, well, these cable shows must not be, or network television as well. Well, they must not be as good because they're not drawing the kind of ratings that they were drawing 10 years ago, or the kind of ratings that, what used to be, commonplace. And it's like, well, but there's more alternatives now. It doesn't speak. It's almost tragic. And I understand, I'm a father of two, I got a family of 4 over here. Going to the movies is not
cheap.
right. It's not the cheap experience that it used to be.
No.
Which is why I would hope that a movie like this would have performed up to expectations, because this is the type of movie I think theaters need right now. Sort of an event, again, a big audio and visual thing that no matter how awesome your home setup is, you're not going to be able to fully replicate it at home like you would in the theater. And but we live in a society now that, let's be honest, kind of follows more than they lead. And so they see the article and that's their reaction. Well, it must not be very good. I'm not going to go see it. I'll wait till it comes out on streaming. But the whole, they're not
these
recognizing
days-
the whole movie industry is going through this right now. As far
Yeah.
as
And
cinema
these days,
goes.
that wait is like 6 weeks.
Yep.
Right.
At the outside.
Right. Well, no,
Sometimes
I mean-
it's 2 or 3.
right.
Fall
I mean,
Fall Guy was what?
last week, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
right.
You
and
guys did the
that-
episode 2 weeks ago.
And
it's already out.
that definitely factors in. Absolutely. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when, guys, something wouldn't come out on VHS or Laserdisc
Yeah.
or whatever, sometimes for years.
A year.
Yeah.
You know,
Remember
yeah, yeah,
Indiana
yeah.
Jones?
on
Yeah,
cable
typically it was
television, E.T.
Yeah.
You know,
The
how
life
long
cycle was like, it was a year to get to VHS, and then maybe 3 or 4 months after that, it would pop up on paid cable on HBO or
Movie
Showtime.
Channel, Showtime.
Yeah, and then maybe another year or so, it would pop up on free TV.
Right.
And then it would, but on networks, and then it would finally start to matriculate to the to the
Saturday afternoon
Right. So
movie.
I just think at some point, if these studios, I mean, obviously they're recognizing the struggle of the theaters right now to getting people in like they used to get in. Even if the movie is top notch, even if the movie is best experienced that way, I think you got a great point as far as they're going to almost have to force the issue, that lead time, when it's like, well, I'm not going to go see it this weekend because I can watch it at home in a month.
That's exactly right.
They're going to have to, and they're cannibalizing their own thing, and then they're kind of complaining about it.
100%. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I hate people in the industry shouting this doom and gloom. I know it's their job to predict and talk about the box office, but the way they're doing it and shouting it is telling people that, well, no one's going to see this movie, and now it's probably going to come out quicker. And they need to stick to their guns and stop trying to get these short-sighted, quick profits of, we can get VOD dollars and DVD. It's like, you'll get that in a couple months. People that didn't go to the theater
are people buying physical media anymore?
I mean, there's still physical media, but renting
not
it
in the quantities that there used to be.
Not
it's
like
more
they used to.
I feel like it's a collector's market now.
Yeah.
Like
Right,
you're getting
but-
special editions or whatever.
I'm talking about digital, though.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm
I thought
saying
you said
buying VOD digital. I'm talking about the people that if they aren't going to the theater and you tell them it's out in 2 weeks on VOD,
Right.
they're not going to go to the theater.
Why
They'll
would
wait.
they?
But if they don't go to the theater and they have to wait 2 months for VOD, they'll get it then. This rush to let's get these VOD dollars is silly because like Scott said, they're cannibalizing their profits. Keep it in the theater and say, no, this isn't going to be out for 2 months.
Well, and on top of that is that they've got to think about, I mean, they're the ones investing the money in the first place.
Sure.
Entertainment, whether it be movies, television, whatever, content can be long-term dollars. You have quality content, it can definitely be long-term dollars. I mean, this is why the whole basis of syndicated television was based on, was create enough episodes and put it in syndication and milk that cow forever, for decades, for generations sometimes. And I think that the entertainment industry as a whole, both in theaters and, even in streaming, is they're kind of getting that, try to get in, get out, turn and burn. They're not thinking about the fact that, you need to spread this out over time. They're thinking about boosting that quarterly report and only that quarterly report, and then moving on from it. And
exactly.
I think, it's sort of they're interfering in their own business interests.
That's a very interesting point, is because that's what we kind of went through, right? Because things don't go to syndication anymore. They just sit on whatever app they were put out on, right?
That's the syndication.
That is the syndication now, which is why we had that strike.
I think you're starting to see the reinvention of syndication in that if you go to Netflix,
HBO.
look how much
Band
HBO
of
stuff,
Brothers in the Pacific are both on there right now.
And so is Insecure, and so is Sex and the City, and so is 6 Feet Under. I mean, they've licensed a bunch of what in their day were super high profile HBO branded. This is why you get HBO.
Yep.
And they're all living on Netflix for a while, and
which is very interesting.
And I think that, ultimately, I think that's good that you're going to start seeing these shows move through over the different platforms,
right?
Because I think that's what syndication looks like now.
Sure.
I will also say HBO has never been able to syndicate their programming because it was too edgy for free TV.
That's true.
Actually, I will only rebut that a little bit. Tales from the Crypt.
They've tried.
Was late nights on Friday nights at 10:30.
There were a handful of properties that they tried with. Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
They had edited versions. There was an edited version of Sex and the City.
Oh, really?
That they tried. But
edited, right? And so you can't put that kind of programming, but on streamers you can put.
You can.
Not Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
Well, but you
'cause
can
they
if they would
So
license
Tales from the
it.
Crypt is weird. It popped up on Vudu for like a month.
Yep.
And then went away. And
did you buy it?
I bought the first 2 or 3
There's
seasons.
so many rights issues with that
Because it was
series.
so cheap, they had it for like $5 a season for seasons 1 through 3.
So good.
And I was like, okay. And then, but then like the next 4 seasons were like $20 each,
And you're
I
gonna
was
wait it
like,
out,
I'm
yeah.
gonna wait you out. And then they pulled them all down.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
since I bought it, I still have
Oh,
it.
good.
But
Well, that's a plus on streaming
Yeah.
sometimes, for sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm jealous of that. I've got them on DVD, but
I've
it's
got
like
'em on
I'd love
DVD.
to have them on digital.
they're an SD if it makes you feel any better.
Okay, that's a little bit better.
But Yeah, there's so many rights issues with that series. It's ridiculous.
So let's jump into it. So we get to see a little bit of the young Furiosa, which is
Yeah.
cool.
A little bit.
We'll see a lot of young
Well, I
Furiosa.
know, I mean,
I think we get half a movie of her.
Yeah, it's an hour until you
For
see
Anya
clocked
Taylor-Joy?
it. It's an hour.
And I think Alila Brown, the young Furiosa, is really good. I think she does a great
Yeah,
job.
I didn't miss her. I'm not even
Yeah.
complaining. I was just really surprised that they have an actress as hot as she is right now,
Yeah.
and I mean professionally.
I got you.
And that they don't show her for an hour.
I think she's in high demand, and they couldn't get her to film. You know,
I don't know, man. When you sign on for
You sign on to be the name,
The poster
of
child.
the titular character of a franchise. Like, you show up for as many weeks as they need you for
Yeah.
what they're paying
Yeah.
her.
I agree.
I think that builds anticipation, though.
That is
True.
also true.
People are like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I can't wait to see her, and then why give it right away?
Guess what? You're gonna wait.
yeah, but I think it's good though. I don't think that's a
No, I like
bug at all.
I like seeing other parts of the. I think for the most part, we're
the first hour
always
is good. I'm
it's
not
really
even
good, yeah.
complaining. I was surprised.
It-
at
yeah,
the
Also,
choice.
it's like not putting Superman in the costume until the last 10 minutes of the movie.
But
That's
this,
dumb.
But
I know.
this is the world building that I talk about though. It's cool to see it. This is what, like, I think they said it was like 35 years after the fall, something like that. Did you-
What is interesting is there's no time. I can't figure out a timeline
yeah, they don't
for
put
this.
a date on it or anything.
Well, not
but-
even that, because Mad Max is in this movie.
Well, no, but this butts right up to Fury Road.
No. That there's a scene with a guy.
Yeah.
But the timeline, this butts right up to Fury Road. So
How
of
does
course
it-
he would be the same
It
age.
ends right where Fury Road starts.
So I kept thinking that those were just like that ending sequence was just recaps of
No,
Fury
that was
Road.
literally them walking
Okay.
the
It was
wives
her, which
into.
I didn't like, because I thought, oh, we get Anna Taylor-Joy because this is so far ahead.
Yeah.
And so to find out that it's supposed to be ending.
It ends. It pulls a Rogue One.
seconds before Fury's
Right.
Road
I think
starts.
that's Charlize Theron though. I heard the voice
absolutely
when it's
is.
the back of her head.
If
and
it's- I think
that's
it could
gotta
just be her voice.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I think they do. But I mean, again, I commend George Miller for doing what he does, which is recasting Anya Taylor-Joy, because otherwise, he said he watched movies like The Irishman and I don't know, whatever other movie he watched with de-aging, and he's like, it's good, but then the whole time you're watching it, like,
You're looking
whoa,
for it.
They
You're
de-aged
distracted by
her.
it.
Yeah.
It is. It becomes a distraction, and so he did the old school Hollywood thing of cast a younger actress,
Yeah.
that would be that age now. Because I mean, not that Charlize is old, but still 10 or 15 years of de-aging or whatever.
Well, I mean,
know,
if we're
it's-
saying that Furiosa is 25, and I
Right.
mean, and she's Charlize Theron is what 40?
yeah, I mean,
if not a little bit older.
either way, you're going to, and it's not a knock to her, it's
No,
age. But,
Charlize Theron is beautiful.
oh yeah, but you're going to either look at her and go, wow, they're having her play a 25-year-old, or you're going to say, oh wow, they'll get all the de-aging.
She's 48.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
But you're going to be looking, but then say, oh,
The
she's
de-aging is
So-
you can,
looks very
you can
weird.
explain it with this is why you need sunscreen.
right. Exactly. Now, if there was a movie to where,
They need to go to SPF Town.
yeah. So I commend him. He said the reason he did it, as much as he loves Charlize and she did an incredible job, is he said, you know what, I didn't want to mess with the de-aging and have it distract from the movie. Anya Taylor-Joy is a great up-and-coming star. I think she did great in this role, even though we're not there yet. But
It would be cheaper.
Yeah, also true.
so
Well, I think
but,
it's fascinating too, by the way, that I'd read she doesn't even have a driver's license, or at least didn't at the time
Yeah,
that filming began. It's like, who signs on to a Mad Max movie without a driving license? I mean, that's
And
And
then-
it's Australia. They don't need licenses down there. They just kind of do their own
But
thing.
I will say part of him being 79, if you go back and watch old movies, they would just recast people all the time.
Yeah.
all the time.
And
yeah.
you're just like, there's a different
Roll
Inspector
with it.
Clouseau. Yeah, there's a different Inspector Clouseau. Suck it.
That's
Yeah,
what I'm
right,
saying.
right.
I'm sick of the de-aging stuff because as good as it can be, most of the time it's distracting. We said the same thing on The Irishman. This was years ago. Just
Yeah.
recast them.
Well, I also I think
just,
if the de-aging I think is fine if you're doing a flashback
quick
in
flashback.
movie,
Right.
But a whole
like
movie.
the Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
That makes sense. the seeing them younger in that one
And
little
that's
clip.
already got this CGI sheen to
Yes.
it.
For a Marvel,
yeah.
Yeah.
That it feels okay. It feels different. It
does.
plays different. But in something like The Irishman, which is this
whole-
gritty, realistic, real world based thing,
It's bad.
And then you get that, and then it was really bad on top of it.
Yeah.
Well, and
But
people are
even
going to
like in-
overanalyze it. They're going to sit there
Yeah.
and look through every clip, going, "Okay, well, this," and you don't want that as a movie maker. You don't want
And-
that.
And
No.
we're also very familiar with what what Robert De Niro actually looked
Right.
like at that age, right? Like
Right.
it's not like they took a character actor and made him look 30 years younger. And
makeup
you're
on
like,
him and-
maybe I remember him on an episode of Will and Grace. I don't
Right.
know. And it's like, you know, like we all are very, very familiar. He has done multiple iconic roles at that age,
Right.
And so, you know, and even Indiana Jones, it was good, but you could still tell it wasn't real, even
Yeah.
though it was really good. And I think if it was not Harrison Ford, not someone we're very
Yeah.
familiar
Valid.
with, I think we could totally be tricked by it.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't put A-list stars.
If you make the villain of the movie who's like a well-established character actor, but you age him, but you de-age him for the opening scene of the movie,
Yeah.
I don't think you'd think anything of it.
No, I totally agree.
And I just want to say that none of this is a knock on Charlize.
No.
I think
Oh,
she's
no, no, no.
phenomenal.
She's
And-
awesome.
And I don't think Anya Taylor-Joy is as good as Charlize in this role. I liked her, but this has nothing to do
I will
with
tell you-
her being better,
I-
but it's just
Charlize Theron has
this.
an edge.
Yes.
There's an edge to
Yeah.
her portrayal of that her like
I
anytime
rewatched it last night, and I'm like, she is so badass.
she has like a I don't know if it's because she played Eileen Wuornos or what, but she definitely has like a harder edge
Yeah.
than
It's organic,
this-
right?
She's
But
got this
also-
world weary, like I'm sick of all your bullshit.
yes, but
that-
also that character is significantly older than the Anya Taylor-Joy
Well,
character.
Which is
No.
part of why I didn't
Yeah.
like the immediate
crossover.
marrying up
Yeah.
of those two movies.
But I will say, and we'll get there, is that she goes through some things that make her Furiosa,
Yeah.
the Furiosa we know. So I do like that she starts off when they do this right in a script where it's like, well, she doesn't seem like the same person. She goes through some stuff, meets some people,
Yeah.
and becomes that person. And so
Agreed.
it was a journey that I enjoyed watching unfold. But anyway, real quick to go over the young part, though, we see the green place.
She
see
the green
mothers.
place. We see her mom. We see then there are raiders that are inside the green place that are cutting up a horse, and they're trying to get out of here. Furiosa sees them, knows that they cannot be here. They can't leave this place, so she's cutting one of the fuel lines. She gets caught in the process. And then she has like this dog whistle that
They kidnap her. Badass scene where we see the mothers and what they can do, and it's awesome.
It's interesting to see how big of a gap there is between like these chase. You think, in a chase sequence you typically see the chaser and the chasee, and they're not that far apart. Where in this one they're always what looks like hundreds of miles apart from each other.
About
I'm being
hundreds of miles, but
sarcastic,
yeah,
but there's a huge distance.
Well, so they're on. They've
well,
got.
they're on the runway from Fast and Furious 6.
Oh.
I don't know.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That would be
It's a
hundreds of
shared
miles.
universe.
Yeah, right.
Shared
But
universe.
they would love that.
But it's cool because you see.
Oh
how,
wait, Charlize Theron's in those movies.
Yeah.
See?
She's kind of
Everybody's in those
Cypher.
movies at this point.
Everybody.
Yeah,
That's
That's
true.
fair. That's fair.
I was in 2 of them.
Yeah, Scott's probably in those movies. Jeez. So
We'll have
what I
tops.
like though, what I like though is you see the resourcefulness of this. Her mother is the one that is like the main one tracking her down, and so she is picking up along the way. She's shooting the raiders off their bikes, taking fuel, taking tires, swapping bikes, and so they're on better equipment, but she's building it up, trying to get to her. So
Yeah.
that's why there's this chase, and
The
she's
most dangerous place on earth
The desert.
is between a mother and her child.
there you go.
That's a tagline from the 90s if I've ever heard one.
But it was awesome. I loved watching this go down where she's tracking them and swapping the bikes and the
Yeah.
wheels and everything.
Taking them out
Really
one
cool
by
scene.
one.
And so she gets right up to their camp. She shoots one of the guys on the bike, and then she almost shoots the other one, but he's able to get into the camp.
Right.
And now it's basically a rescue mission to break her out.
Yeah, so her mother ends up donning like biker gear and a helmet, and she goes in and
There's a big sandstorm. She's able to kind of go in undercover.
And the guy that kidnaps her is saying like, "There's a spot. There's everything we're looking for. It's here." But he won't tell anybody where it is because information is gold, and they want to talk to.
Information is gas.
That's also
Yeah.
true.
That's right. So they go to Dementis, Chris Hemsworth.
And unfortunately, they who slits that guy? Is it? Oh, Furiosa slits that guy's throat.
Well, yeah. So yeah, she.
And I thought when they hung this dude upside down, I was like, this movie is gonna get wild.
Yeah.
Like they're hanging that they're gonna bleed this guy out. But Furiosa will not talk. She doesn't say anything. Hemsworth, I don't think he gets the credit he probably should.
Absolutely.
Because he is fantastic.
I think he's a really good actor. I think anyone that is in these Marvel movies that maybe didn't have as huge of a career, like Robert Downey Jr., we know he can act outside of Marvel, and but Chris Hemsworth is so much more than Thor, and we've seen him in movies like Rush.
Yeah.
We've seen him in
Extraction.
Yeah, we've seen him do different action roles, drama roles, and he's really good. And these villains, I've heard some reviews where people are like, "Oh, he's a little bit, ridiculous."
He
and
is he is hamtastic, but it fits.
But they're like, he's not
Jack Sparrow.
Yes,
but they're like, no, but I don't think it's as bad as whatever Not Jack Sparrow was in the other movie we talked about.
Yeah, the
Was it
one
Peter
that
Pan?
that Momoa,
I
Jason
think-
Momoa
Oh.
did in Fast and Furious.
Well, I think part of that, though, is, typecasting is a real thing. It still is.
Yeah.
And,
Sure.
Chris Hemsworth is kind of typecast. So I think some of the reaction to that sort of thing, because I was very excited when I saw that, he was cast in this film in that kind of role, is I think they're looking at it and I think they're basing it on what they already know him as or think of him as.
Sure.
Instead of, looking at the idea that, yes, he can be very varied. He can be very different. He can play all these different types of roles. And I'm with you. He's outstanding. But he's kind of been pigeonholed into one type of expectation, one type of
he has.
role.
I agree.
And I think that I would hope he would take on or be offered more opportunities to show his range, because I think that it would, everybody would benefit. Obviously, he would benefit career-wise. Not that he's doing bad, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
I think that he would have so many more iconic roles. But, Hollywood kind of gets in this idea of, well, this is the type of role that he's good at, and this is the kind of things we're going to offer him. And I was glad that he accepted this one to at least get a chance to maybe break out a little bit and show other things he can do.
Yeah.
Well, I think
It's why I did not pursue an acting career. It's when you're the buff pretty boy.
Oh yeah, it's
know.
tough. I
That's
understand.
all you're gonna do, and I just felt boring.
Yeah.
you got, I mean, you
boring.
gotta, you don't want to just do the same thing.
Yeah.
I will say about Hemsworth, I don't think he's gonna take a lot more roles. I mean,
think
he
he's
has
got enough money to.
Well, not even that, but he said he's got that pre-diagnosis of whatever that brain
Oh.
issue is, and he's like, I'd much rather spend that
Oh, I didn't
time.
know he had a health thing.
He's got something going.
know
Yeah,
that.
well, like it affects his memory. Not the Bruce Willis thing, but it's like that's why we haven't seen him. Like he said, I took a step back to be with my family because I don't know how much time I've got, so I'm just taking advantage. But when you're an Australian actor and George Miller comes to you and says,
Right.
"I want you in a Mad Max
Who
movie,"
else would be a bigger? I mean, Hugh Jackman's the only one I could think of.
Nicole Kidman.
If they want to do another big bad in a Mad Max movie, get Hugh Jackman to come chew the scenery and be a villain. I think
and
he could-
he's good
Yeah.
at that.
right? So I
Yeah.
think he could do it, but Chris Hemsworth is the one where it totally makes sense. Where
Yes.
It's like he's a huge actor, he's so popular, he's Australian, like give him a chance. He does great. He's chewing the scenery, which is what Mad Max villains do. And some people say again that is a bug and not a feature. They're like some of the other villains in the old movies are so much more serious. And it's like, did you watch those movies?
Those
It's
movies
supposed to
are
be over the
wacky.
top. You're supposed
They're
to be
ridiculous.
over the top.
Right, right.
That's
That's
not-
literally
so-
the point. If they
It
were just
is.
your average bad person, it wouldn't
Yeah.
be what it is. It wouldn't be Mad Max. It wouldn't.
yeah, it's like
again,
it's
this is
okay not
supposed
to
be a-
like. Yeah, it's okay not to like that, but it's not a. It's not a flaw in
It's
the
not a
film.
flaw
It's
in the
not like
film.
I don't know about Caddyshack. There's so much golf.
Yeah.
Why is it
Right,
so
it's
bad?
supposed,
Like
to, it's
Major
supposed to be
League.
over the top. It's supposed to be
Yeah.
larger than life. It's not supposed to be the type of person that you hopefully encounter in the real world.
Yeah.
And,
right.
you
It's
know,
not
that's the
called
whole
normal
point
Max.
of it.
So
So
Perturbed Max.
Yeah.
Average Max. Yeah.
Right.
he lets Furiosa
think
kind of be
she's safe.
pampered and safe, and that is not the case. So Furiosa ends up meeting like the soothsayer.
Well, he's like, get your rest, and in the morning I'll take you back home, which clearly we know as adults that
Right.
they're going to follow her to the place. So-
Correct.
But before that, mom breaks her out.
Mom breaks her out, and then mom ends up getting caught
Yeah.
and butchered.
Yeah, I mean, she holds her own. She holds them off. She tells Furiosa to escape. She's picking them off one by one.
I do like that scene where she's in the
cave,
the cavern, and just like picking them. Like they
just run in and she shoots them,
and loading up the cavern of bodies.
But in the end, it's like they get her, and then Furiosa goes against her mom's wishes. And I know, like, Katie, did that thing where it's like, oh, come on, she told you to leave. But it's like, if you're a little kid, right, and your mom, you hear her screaming and you hear gunshots.
And you also, Furiosa at this point is also very capable of handling some things on her own. Like she's got some skills already.
For sure. But she sees her mom strung up and there's someone like torturing her. I don't know.
I think it was whatever his name is. Chris Hemsworth. I think
no, there's some guy, the Octoboss or something. Some guy is up doing something with knives and trying to get information out of her. And then Dementus walks up to her and he's like, hey, just tell us where it is and we'll stop. And she won't talk.
It's a very sinister scene because he kind of grabs Furiosa by the face. He's like, no, don't look away. Like, you're going to watch what happens.
He's very sinister.
So Furiosa, the mother dies. Furiosa is basically taken hostage. She meets this soothsayer who has all of this information. And she starts doing a tattoo on her arm of a star map, basically, that she can follow to get back to the green, is what they call it. Fast forward, this is when they go to see Immortan Joe.
Well, so essentially what happens is Dementor wants control and power, and he goes to the Citadel.
Oh no, he goes to Gastown. He takes Gastown.
Before he goes to the Citadel. He
Is
goes
that right?
to the Citadel.
Oh, you're right. You're
says,
right.
Here's my biker army, and he talks to the war boys. We see the war. It's the same thing from Fury Road.
Yep.
We see all the war boys, and he says, "Hey, I will free you from this, this terror, whatever." He doesn't know who's in charge, but he's like, "Come join me. Look at all my army and everything." And then
kill them all.
and then the war, whoever it was, the guy up in the tower, not Immortan Joe, I don't think, but whoever gets on there is like, "Okay, so these are the war boys."
Joe. It was his little guy with the nose thing.
Yeah. So he's like
accountant.
Yeah,
he's like, pick a war boy, and so it was kind of funny
That's
when
a
his
good line.
general
It
was
was
like
that
looking that guy. The guy steps at me. No, the guy next to him. But he comes out and he sprays his paint or whatever that he huffs and gets crazy. Gets his two boomstick things, and he slides down and just takes out like a bunch of these motorcycles.
Kamikazes himself.
Yeah, and then they're like, we've got all these guys that are willing to do the exact same thing. So are you going to try us? And then this huge war breaks out where they're just dive bombing them all with the same sticks from the first one that are like explosive spears.
That's exactly.
And they're all jumping off and taking out the motorcycles. There's cranes coming down and picking up their motorcycles while they're on them. It's just pure chaos.
Wild.
But here's the other thing. In the hands of someone who's not George Miller, a chaotic scene like this would be a bunch of close-ups and quick cuts.
Imitation
movie,
Paul Greengrass.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all.
In this movie, you see it all going down, like on a battlefield, like a Saving Private Ryan action sequence where it's like it's all there. You can see it happening, and it's so tightly choreographed. Who was it? Was it Steven Soderbergh who said something? Someone is like, I think it was Soderbergh, and he said, like, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I don't know how this guy does it. Like, this is my job, and I don't know how I could never do anything like what George Miller has orchestrated, because he has a mind to see these action sequences and choreograph
I think that's
them in a way.
I've said that a billion times. Is
a billion really
on this show?
Many?
Probably.
That makes sense.
Ever since the Bourne Identity. Right. Ever since the Bourne Identity, people have stopped doing like full action set pieces. It's always that close up, quick cut. So when you do see someone pull back and just get the whole scope of everything, it is super impressive.
It is.
Gareth Edwards is a good.
Yeah.
I think that kind of goes into something I touched on a little earlier there too. You have someone who's been around, that's that old school influence with the modern technology, the modern, opportunities and the modern techniques that exist out there. And, nobody's probably even teaching that sort of thing. Not that you probably could teach it back in the day, but nowadays, people are taught this is how you put something like this together, and they kind of paint by numbers. And here you have a combination of old school filmmaking with modern technology, and that's why you get things like that stand out so differently.
And studios are not giving filmmakers who aren't George Miller the money to make movies like this.
That's true.
Even if the young guys want to, they're unproven.
No way.
And a young guy comes in and makes a $200 million movie and it makes $30 million.
Right.
Like, that's on them. They're not going to risk it. But with George Miller and with Fury Road particularly, he proved that he is the guy to make movies
clout.
like this.
At some point, they're going to have to, though.
Well, if they make these type of movies
I think those
anymore,
young
is
guys
the
are going to have to
problem,
step up. That's
They're gonna
the
have to.
thing.
Yeah.
Those-
But who's making? They're not giving them the chance. And with budgets as high as they are and box office as low as it is, I'm worried we're not going to see movies like this getting made because they do.
I
and
do think though. I think we're going to see a switch in that. I have to believe
budgets
that
have to go down.
They have to go down
for movies to exist. It just
There's no this Brad Pitt thing where he's making that
$300 million.
what the fuck
racing movie
for a racing movie
It's crazy.
that nobody's gonna see. Nobody's gonna see that.
I mean, it looks like an Oscar bait movie that will get awards, but to Apple's giving it, isn't it 3? It's not 4, is it? It's some crazy hundreds
it's crazy
for a racing movie, and it's like, why? Why do you have to do that?
There has to be a switch.
Because at that point, you're counting on that being, a $1 billion+ movie.
That movie has to make double with marketing and splitting the box office. A $300 million movie has to make 600, 700 million to break
That's not
even.
gonna happen.
And it's an Apple movie, which means they'll give it a week in theaters for awards, and then it will just be streaming.
Well, it'll be on it'll be on one screen in L.A.
I mean, it'll probably do a wide release, but the point is, though, then it goes to streaming, and then Apple's going to go, we lost so much money, because how do you quantify we made $300 million back from this movie?
It's interesting when you talk about the studio, like Paramount, Warner Brothers, Columbia, right? Like those are old school studios who have been doing this forever. Now you've got Netflix and Apple who haven't.
They're figuring it out.
And
still,
like,
yeah.
they're playing with mom and dad's money, and they're just like, yeah, man, Brad Pitt, give him $300 million.
I was listening to a podcast the other day. I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been Neil Brennan on.
Oh, he's
on
so good.
Mark Maron.
Yeah.
If you've never
Neil
seen
Brennan
listen to
is
his shows.
amazing.
if you've never seen Three Mics on
Yeah.
Netflix, I cannot recommend
Listen
it
to his
highly enough.
podcast,
Yeah.
too, Blocks.
He's so
It's
funny.
amazing.
But he was talking to an actor, and he talked about would you make a movie if Bill Gates hired you to make a movie just for him? Is it worth doing? And he was like, we have that. It's called Apple TV. he's like, we're making these shows and we're getting tons of money, and like nobody
Yeah.
watches them. They don't get taught. I mean, with the exception of Ted Lasso, like none of them seem to get like talked about in the zeitgeist. Severance a little bit.
Right,
but-
it's in and out. It is.
Yeah.
A lot of this content now doesn't resonate, and you got to look at it. It's like, okay, is 10 years, 20 years from now anyone going to be talking about some of that stuff?
Well, the
The
Netflix
answer
stuff,
is no.
especially those action movies. I mean, what the ones with Chris Evans and Chris Pine, these random
The
Ryan
Gray
Reynolds
Man.
and The Rock,
Yeah.
whatever.
I really
just,
wonder what nostalgia will look like in 20 years.
That's a great
because,
point.
I think part
Because
of it, though,
what will you be nostalgic for?
Well, I think part of it, though, too, is we've talked about this. I think part of nostalgia, especially when it comes to movies, isn't just the movie itself. It's the event, of, hey, you get up, you go out, maybe you have a nice meal, you go to the theater, you're taking time out to go do this one thing. And, if you really love that movie, then you're nostalgic for the theater you saw it in, and
I'll do you one
and seeing it with a crowd, and it's
Yeah.
way different than ordering Uber Eats and sitting on your couch and clicking a button, because you don't have to work for it, you don't have to schedule it, you don't
Yeah.
have to do any
True.
of that, and you probably scroll on your phone about 2/3 of the time. Sometimes
That's a big
anyway.
problem too.
Well, and I'll do you
And
one
so
better.
you're not going to remember. There's no nostalgic ties to that experience at the end.
Well, and people aren't nostalgic for Star Wars because of seeing Star Wars. They're nostalgic for Star Wars because they had the toys, and then their friends had the
Yes.
toys, and
Yeah,
their
the-
friends
the
would come
whole-
over, and they'd blow them up with firecrackers, or they'd make their own Super 8 versions of Star Wars with the
Well,
characters.
These things would become
yeah.
pop culture. These things would become, something that society talked about and had in common.
Yeah.
And,
Bingo,
you
and
s-
now they're not.
And you spent 3 years thinking about Star Wars until the
Right.
next Star
Right.
Wars.
We've got,
Right.
we've got
You
there's a
you-
Star Wars property that's coming out in a couple weeks.
You subscribe to Bantha Tracks, and like it was all this stuff, and like not every movie can be that, but
Right.
like there's not the bandwidth, but that's why people have passion for Star Wars,
And
right?
that's where Marvel's starting to lose it, is coming out with 3 movies a
Mm-hmm.
year, 4 TV shows. Same with Star Wars, is people are starting to get inundated, and then the stuff isn't really that great all the time because they're rushing it out.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's
there's
like,
no-
and
There's no anticipation anymore.
right, it just
you
comes
know?
out all the time.
Right.
They're
Well, and
strip-
it's like
they're
right,
strip mining.
No, that's a good way of putting it. There's no,
Yeah.
you don't have that anticipation. You don't have that build, and I think that's true of anything. I think I remember as a kid, every few weeks, getting excited because that new Nintendo Power magazine was coming in the mail. And, but now you're hit with that information in real time constantly every single day. So there's no anticipation to it anymore. You don't have that
and
excitement
you would
anymore.
collect those magazines, right?
Yeah,
you would
hold
collect
on
those
to
things because you're like, well, what if in a year I like forgot about this and I want to look it up, and like now it's like, well, I would just go to Wikipedia.
Right.
Talk
And
about
now
comic
it's the
books,
same
man.
thing, It's like now it's like, okay, the movie comes out. I guess you have a little anticipation as far as wanting to see. I mean, even trailers had anticipation back then.
Yeah,
now the
right.
trailer
Yeah,
just
they-
drops on the internet at some random
This
time.
whole movie.
Yeah.
And well, there's that too. There's definitely
Yeah.
a way that they cut them, but
Yep.
sometimes you wanted to see a trailer for a specific movie. You couldn't see it unless you were in a theater watching another movie.
That's why I went to what was attached to Phantom Menace.
It was something. Oh no, I was the Phantom Menace.
The Matrix. What
No,
was?
I think Phantom Menace
Phantom Menace was
attached,
attached
to
to-
Meet Joe Black.
Okay,
I,
that's-
yeah.
I thought it was like Happy Gilmore or The Waterboy or something like that. But at
but you
least
used
one
to
of
go
them
to a
was.
movie just for the trailer.
Right,
think
you
I wanna
might do
watch
that
Meet Joe
sometimes.
Black? No.
Yeah.
Sure
Right,
That
didn't.
ending is the weirdest ending
When he gets
of
hit by the
all
car?
time.
And sometimes,
so
you,
cute.
and sometimes you didn't even know that trailer was going to be. You're there watching another movie, and then this trailer starts, and you're like, "Oh, could this be? Oh my god!"
Could it be? I think Marvel has the ability to do that right now with the X-Men.
It was Meet Joe Black.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where you kind of they've
Hang on. It was Meet Joe Black and the Waterboy.
Oh, look at you,
Hey,
Scott.
look
Well
at
done.
you.
Yeah.
You can. I think they could. What Scott is saying, just trickle a little information out there. Hey, we've got a writer for that. Like, okay, we're moving towards something.
Well, I think they're realizing that because Iger has said we're pulling back. We're going to give
Yeah.
less movies. So we'll see how that ends up. But to get through this movie,
Oh, yeah.
really cool action sequence. Jump ahead. He figures, okay, we can't get into the Citadel. We're going to take Gastown. They orchestrate one of this like tanker runs. He realizes like the clay in the ground, you can mix it and
Makes
make
it
yourself
looks like a war boy.
look like a war boy. So his guys are dressed like that. They head towards Gastown. The Gastown guy's like, yeah, we're not buying this. And then
he goes, make it look real.
yeah, and he make it look real, and then he starts having some of his bad guys attack the other guys that look
Yeah.
like war boys. The Gastown guys are like, all right, let him in. They get in. Long story short, they take over Gastown. I think we don't see it, but he takes
They
over
turned it
Bullet
into a
Town.
Buc-ee's.
Yeah, right.
Bathrooms were immaculate.
Those
Amazing.
the
Yeah.
little bears, the
Changed his name
mascot.
to Amaka Joe.
Mac and Joe. But so they take the head of Gastown. They bring him back to. Well, they send a message to Morton Joe, and he's got like a picture of the painting that this guy was working on in his finger. He's like, all right, bring him in. And we find out this guy is Morton Joe's brother.
The Gastown guy
Yeah.
was, yeah. Well, you can kind of tell. He looked like he
yeah.
got the white hair. And
But I do
That's
like this.
hurtful.
I do like this kind of trap where Hemsworth, again, jacked to the gills.
Oh, yeah.
Has got like a spike, and he's like, it's a tension. It's all, and he's holding it back, and he's like,
If you attack me, this is
I'm
going
gonna
in
let it go.
your brother's head.
And then
And he's also like, you can't kill me because I've got my nipples rigged up to a bomb detonation device.
and they just rip it off, and he's like, no! And then he lets the thing go and kills the guy.
yeah, it's
anyway,
such a weird, funny
it is.
moment.
I thought it was a very funny, like strange moment.
But essentially, it's like, if you don't let us go, Gastown will explode, and it's the only refinery left. You won't
Right.
have any of your war vehicles. You won't have any transportation. And if you've never seen a Mad Max movie, it's crazy to be listening to this podcast. But it works because the main things is like the Citadel has clean water, Gastown has the gasoline that
And
they call it,
Bullet Town has
the bullets, which is what I'm like. George Miller doesn't waste any time. His naming conventions are great. You don't have to know anything about the world.
I
But
do wonder what they're eating, but go on.
It is produce, but I don't know where they're getting it from.
Yeah.
yeah.
that is true.
So, and then mother's milk is one of the big ones.
Right.
So, and you see in Ferry Road, you've got these mothers just pumping, and they're like really well taken care of, and they're just constantly pumping milk, and they used to trade. So the system doesn't work. If you remove one of them, then you remove either food or water or ammunition to have these wars and seize control. So anyway, he takes over Gastown. He takes over Bullet Town.
When we're at the Citadel, he says, okay, fine, you can have Gastown. We're going to increase your food by blah, blah, blah.
Only a third. He
But
wants
I
it double.
want her because Furiosa's there, and she's got, she's wearing like this white, she's very young. And I think Morton Joe realizes
Well, she's not mutated. A lot of them have
she's
these,
got like she's totally
healthy.
She's healthy, and I think Immortan Joe realizes that she would fit with the
She's healthy and untainted.
correct. She would fit with the other women.
Yeah.
To give
They
him a
want to
child.
taint her.
They do want to.
They
Well,
want her
that's-
taint.
that's the thing, is that it's like Immortan Joe wants to procreate and have healthy kids, and like a lot of his kids are mutated. That's where you get the Rexus and Scrotus.
Scrotus and Erectus.
Yeah, I mean, they're
Nathan Jones and the guy that played the young striker from
Mikey-
Days of Future Past.
It's Mikey Day as Butthead in SNL. He looks just like him. It's hilarious. But
But that's the guy that played the young striker in Days of Future Past.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, if you're wondering, well, I saw Fury Road and he didn't have 2 kids. They only had the big guy. Scrotus is the villain from the Mad Max video game. So he was
is
able,
that right?
He was able to tie in the 2015 video game. And if he's not in Fury Road, but he's in the video game, you can do the math. Why he's not in Fury Road, but he's the villain of the game. So
I didn't realize that.
The universe does all tie together. And I know some people were like, well, wait a minute. He doesn't have 2 kids.
I
Why-
just didn't even like that. If you're gonna bitch about the fact that there's 2, it's like, who cares?
But they're saying, like, we don't see what happens to him and he's not in the next movie. It's like, well, it does tie
He'd
in.
go play this video game from 2005,
which is kind of 2015. It's a good game, too.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's a really cool game.
So Furiosa goes to where all the women are, and Nathan Jones, who is Rectus, I think, not okay.
No.
Like very rapey, very wants
Literally
to take
is what he wants to do.
yes.
Yeah.
So
They all have chastity belts that Immortan Joe locks him up, and he takes her to the workshop, undoes the chastity belt.
Correct.
But she ends up fending
she
for
gets
herself,
away,
right?
Yeah,
she gets away.
She gets away. Oh, she cuts her hair.
And he pulls off
and
the
he
wig
pulls
with the
off
hair,
wig,
yeah.
and then she gets away. But she doesn't get away. She kind of hides herself to join.
Would you say out of the frying pan into the fire?
That's exactly it.
So
But-
she blends in with the people that are working in the
correct,
Citadel.
and they pick her because she's small and she can jump on things, and she's not, she ends
There's
up
a truck that's gonna fall, one of their war trucks, and they're like, "Boy, you're little. You go up there." She rehooks it, comes down. They're like, "You are now the whatever this position is."
right.
And she flash forward. We're in with the mechanics. Now it's Anya Taylor-Joy.
Correct. And she has been. They're building this massive rig to go from point A to point B quickly, and
They're trying to build the thing from Fury Road.
They are,
This is an
yeah.
early version of the war rig.
yes, since she is working on this rig, she has like chained a motorcycle and supplies to the bottom of this rig, and which I think is a great reveal because they don't show you what she's doing other than like taking a leak under the car.
And so they think she's a small mute boy.
Yes.
And so, she's trying to hide that in the ways that you would have to do that. He's like, it's just taking a
just
piss.
taking a
Why
pee."
are you having to hide this? But she's trying to be a stowaway, and on this next run, she's going to take the supplies, get
take
out
the
of
bike
there.
and get out of there. That unfortunately goes to because they're attacked by Dementus's. But I guess this isn't his army because they say that people have started to dissent against him because Gastown is going to hell.
Well, we definitely see that when they go to Gastown.
Yes. Furiosa is under the rig. Somebody ends up falling under the rig and knocking all of her stuff loose.
Oh, I'm sorry. So these are Octobos's guys. So
Yeah.
Octobos got pissed when Dementus killed his guys. The guys that were dressed as war boys were not really cool with the plan, but it's like, okay, do what Dementus says. Dementus ends up murdering them, and then Octobos scoots. He doesn't, and now they've got their own little side army
Correct.
trying to take control. So they attack the rig. It's an amazing action
killer
sequence.
sequence. It's insane.
The cinematography, like from the profile shot of them driving the desert. Guys are up on balloons, parachutes, hang gliders. They're attaching these hooks in a way. It's so creative the way that they're attacking this rig, and all this is done practically with, I'm sure,
It's
some
wild.
enhancements. But this is the stuff that just makes you go, this is what the movies, this is what you go to the theater for.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. And so we just see them attacking. Furiosa ends up basically,
a guy gets pushed under the rig.
Yeah.
Again, there's a bomb under there. He ends up dying, and then Furiosa has to
comes
step
up and
starts
fending him off.
Correct.
And then we see Solid Snake from the Metal Gear Solid series. The only thing I could think of, this guy's in The Crown. I don't watch that. Apparently he's popular in that. Jack. He plays Jack in this movie. He is Tom Burke, Praetorian Jack. And so he looks just like Solid Snake, if you know those games. But he ends up fighting off these guys alongside Furiosa.
Right.
Instead of him being like, oh, you're a woman and you've lied to us, I'm going to give
like,
you to
let's-
Immortan Joe. He's like, I'm going to train you because I can see how awesome you are.
Well, she's like, I'm out. She's like, so he's like, he lets her go, and then she's like walking down the road, and you can see him coming in the distance.
He's like, where are you gonna go?
Yeah, like let's just. Well, it depends, you know.
But he's
whatever
he's
you're
like,
into.
You stay with me. I'll train you, and then when we're done, I'll let you go to the
Right.
place you're looking for.
Wherever you want to go.
So she's a badass. We can see they've been working with each other for a while. She ends up being she's like he is the position that she is in the Fury Road.
Yes.
The Imperator Furiosa, where he's the main driver. And so she is his assistant. They go on a run to Gastown, right? And this is where it goes to crap.
It does.
They go in there and the place is rebelling. They end up taking.
It is an interesting moment where even Chris Hemsworth, Dementor,
Yeah, he's like.
is like
Dementis.
Dementis, like, hey, look, I'm going to show you how to get out of here. Like, he's not even, he could just let them die inside Gastown, but
still
he's like,
kinda
get
needs-
out. We need to get you out of here.
Yeah, he needs them if he's ever going to regain control of this at all. He needs their supplies and everything. So it's a great action sequence again with them all attacking
he
the
wants to
truck.
set up a parlay basically with a Morton Joe, and then they realize this is all a setup. Like, this is, so they bring in the guy from Bullet Town, and they're like, look, he's coming. Like, so they set up basically it's a cat and mouse game at this point, where Hemsworth and his crew are making it look like they're coming.
They want
that right?
They
They're
want to
making it-
lure them out of the Citadel
Yeah,
so
yeah,
they
yeah.
can take over the Citadel.
Right.
So they pretend like they're going to Bullet Town, and they veer. Once Chris Hemsworth starts charging at him, they then turn and go to Gas Town or something like that. They lure him.
It's a cat. It's cat and mouse is what they're doing, and then we end up getting to Gastown.
Oh,
They're ambushed.
They go to Bullet Town and find out that Bullet Town has been also taken over.
Yes, the main guy, the driver of the truck,
Jack.
does the same thing that Furiosa's mother does, where he's basically sacrifices himself to get her out of here.
Fly, you fool.
Right, it's a good. I like it. But she does what she did before.
And this is at Bullet Town.
Yeah, she turns around and they go back, and they end up getting out together. There's
But
a
she's basically like, no, I'm not going to leave him.
Right.
So she goes back, and there's this awesome action sequence where they've got flamethrowers, and she's like blocking it. You've seen this in the trailers and the stills where they're shooting flamethrowers at the gate, and she's standing behind them, and she's shooting through the gate. Jack is in the war rig, and Bullet Town has this like spiral that goes to the center, and he is plowing through people,
Yeah.
plowing through towers. Chris Hemsworth is up on one of the towers. Meanwhile, she's covering him and sniping at the guys, sniping at Chris Hemsworth, and then he ends up taking down a tower. And the whole place is just getting completely destroyed.
Yes.
Chris Hemsworth ends up getting rescued. She ends up he shoots a
she-
rocket launcher at her.
Yeah.
She's kind of blown up and buried in the sand. He gets in this like monster truck and starts chasing her down.
Well, her and Jack get in like this other rig that they have they've set up. They make it sound like that it's for speed purposes.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's so that they have supplies and 2 more
Right.
bikes that they can use. So they're taking off.
So they escape, but he hunts them down in this.
Correct.
Which I believe from watching Fury Road, that is what Immortan Joe's in. He's in the big monster car with monster truck wheels.
Oh, is he?
So I think they took that or rebuilt it. I'm guessing from
Could be.
Dementis. So now it's a chase where he's trying to track them down. They catch them.
They catch
It's
them.
Long story
and
short.
Furiosa's arm. This is where we figure out. Initially I thought, since she's putting the tattoo on her arm, that somebody's gonna see it and she's gonna cut her own arm off to get rid of the tattoo. Like, so that, because that's the whole point of this whole thing, is Furiosa is refusing to give any information as to like where this place is.
Well, and they don't know that that's her for the rest of the movie as
Right.
she's grown up.
Right.
But she doesn't want them to get to the green place. So they capture.
But she ends up getting her arm stuck in like when they're chased, her arm gets like
which is pretty
wrenched.
gnarly. It's
Yeah, it was
pinched
pretty
between
gross.
the monster truck and the car.
Right,
But
right.
they catch them. They pull Jack. We never actually see him die, but they've got
He
him like
did.
walking. They're pulling him around the desert. I know, but I'm just saying, if some
They
miracle
wanted to bring him
right.
back.
We don't see him dead, but they're dragging him around the
Right,
desert,
right.
handcuffed. And then Furiosa, they have her strung up, watching all this. There's a dirt storm or whatever. Cut back to where she was strung up by her arm.
Her arm
it's
is
just
go-
the
yeah,
arm. She's
yeah.
cut it off. She's escaped on motorcycle, and now
She
they're-
ends up getting taken by cannibals, I assume. And when she wakes up, like
well,
she's
she's
got,
saved by Max. She's in the desert. This is the cameo.
but Max doesn't do anything.
Well, he
So-
brought her to these people.
I don't think so.
Well,
I think they. So what I think I think that cameo of Max is just that he's there, right? Because it's just him leaning up against a car
didn't it look like he saw her and he was gonna? I thought, and then she wakes up.
with the
Saved.
cannibals.
Yeah, I thought he maybe
they were gonna
dropped her
eat
off.
them. She was gonna those people were gonna eat her.
Okay. But I just thought that he brought her to wherever.
Oh, I didn't think that.
Okay, well-
I thought it was just like one of those moments, like
It could be just a
you
cute
see
moment.
you see a Wayne Tech satellite.
I hear
you
it.
know?
I just thought he saw her in the desert and then she woke up not in the desert. But anyway, she's picked up. She escapes from these gross.
Yeah, her
people.
arm is like covered in maggots.
Oh,
And
they're like scraping them off. I'm guessing to eat them. It's
that's
nasty.
gross.
I think you can use maggots to prevent infection.
you can. That is true.
I think
Oh,
they were,
actually saving her with those?
I think
Okay.
that's what they were. Yes.
Hopefully
And
that
they're
doesn't
reusing
come
them.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she goes back to the Citadel and says, "Look, we got to take him out like now." And then she ends up crafting the arm, the arm that she has in Fury Road.
She's in that cave Iron Man was in. Used his
that's
tools
right. That's
to
right.
recraft the
Yeah.
arm.
She's in the Middle East crafting.
We get our first Mad Max needle drop. No, it wouldn't be our first because we
saw
Tina
Max.
Turner
Is she in there?
and
Thunder.
Beyond Thunderdome.
Oh yeah,
Thunderdome,
right,
yeah.
right.
I was
right.
like needle drop. Like you.
I see.
she
I
did
see.
the
She's
song.
literally
We
right.
don't need another hero. Like, that's from Mad Max.
What is it? That's another one. Like just bring her. I guess you can't bring her back, but
that's
you gotta,
yeah.
not gonna
the
happen.
de-aging technology
Yeah.
definitely isn't that good.
It is interesting that Mel Gibson hasn't come back.
Well, he was insisting that all the bad guys be Jews.
Oh, I knew it. I knew
yeah,
it.
He's set up for that one. Set up
You
for that
can't
one.
bring. He's doing his
he's too
own
old.
thing. But
Oh, yeah,
you
he's
just
a- yeah,
they're
he's
not-
doing his own thing,
Warner
right?
Brothers is like,
direct to VOD films. That's his own
yeah,
thing.
Warner Brothers is not going. Hey George,
He's
we're
done
giving
so
you
many-
100.
Mel Gibson's done so many direct to VOD films. I thought for a minute he had aphasia.
Oh no. Jeez. So
That's good.
now Furiosa has built her
She
arm up
basically
like you
says
said.
we're gonna go after him, and he is defeated at this point, but he's mine.
Yeah.
And she jumps in like this garbage.
I like it when people tell people like Immortan Joe,
Yeah.
hey, if we find him, he's mine. It's like, who are you? Do you see this guy with his crazy? I'm like, it's a fun movie thing, but it's like, seriously, like, you're my driver.
Right,
Like,
right.
What are you talking about?
So the Immortan Joe's army ends up fighting. There's fights everywhere. It's the 40-day war.
Yeah, 40-day desert war. I think.
Wasteland War.
Wasteland
Sorry.
War.
Yeah.
And so finally Furiosa gets out there and she's driving this garbage car, and everybody's
and then
fighting.
Beavis and Butthead are there.
Yeah, everybody's fighting about who's going where. And while all these idiots are infighting, she jumps in this.
That wheel can fit on my car, and they're souping it
She's
up or
like,
whatever. And
"Okay."
she's like, yeah, perfect. She drives off with it. Those dummies just look
Yeah.
at each other like, woo. And then the big guy is chasing her like, oh.
Which I think is also funny.
It is
Like,
funny. He's a funny character. because
You've
he's so
seen him
doofy.
before in other stuff.
Okay,
He's been
I'm
in,
sure.
like he's one of those whenever they need like a because he's a giant man in real
He's
life.
the new Kevin Nash.
Sort
Right?
of.
Because
Yeah.
Kevin Nash would always play those big bouncer level.
He was Super Shredder.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
What? Oh, yeah. In
Yeah,
the
at the
second,
end-
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Did you know that the guy that played Shredder in the original movie is the doctor from the Dharma Initiative in Lost?
No.
Yeah, he was Shredder. I don't know. I just
Weird.
found that out the
We
other
never
day.
see his face.
Yeah. I mean, he's been in a ton of stuff, but I remember him from Lost. And I'm
Okay.
like, well, that was Shredder.
Interesting. Chris Hemsworth realizes that Furiosa is on his ass because she's picking off like henchmen. So they decide to
does a
split,
little
splits
Little trick
splitsaroo.
here. Yeah.
And she
One
and he,
guy's
and he,
wearing his cape.
he does trick her.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, she goes after all the wrong ones first. It's a good diversion because she's
well, I do like that. She goes after the one guy first, and it was the wrong one. And then she's going to go after the other one, but then he's attacked by another gang of bikers and like torn to shreds. And she's like, well, that's not him. And then she goes after Dementus.
So they go into the sandstorm,
Yeah.
and then there's a big wreck. He wakes up and he's like trying to drink water.
I like that. Like, that's kind of a cool stuff where he's got the motorcycle is used as like a tent.
Yeah,
And I
well,
was like,
yeah,
that's kind
one
of
his cape that he wears. I
Yeah.
think, or something. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's a parachute or something.
no, it was
but-
the cape. You're right.
Well, I thought that he lured her out with the cape on.
Oh,
remember
maybe.
the old guy?
Yeah, you're right, you're
but
right.
it was something like a tent shading him from the sun, and so she lets him wake up. And as soon as he is up and out, she's like,
He's like, oh, you could have killed me in my sleep. You know, you want this. Like, there's nothing.
it's a really good monologue,
It
really
is
good villain
really
monologue.
good.
And he's doing the thing like, what makes us so different? We've lost everything. We find out Chris Hemsworth lost his wife and kids. Furiosa's lost her family. And he's like, you're not so different, you and I. And they have this great conversation.
Right. And she's basically taken him out without him knowing it. She's unloaded his gun. She's taken his water. He's screwed. And this is when she reveals herself to him, where she's like, you don't remember me.
And he's like, Little D? He calls her like Dementus Jr.
What
when
I
she's a
like
kid.
the reveal is that I thought she was cutting his dick off. Like she's got like this
Cutting his little D.
his little
Yeah.
D, yeah. So she's got like part of the arm has like a saw on it. So she like pulls the little lever and you hear it going and I was like, oh man.
The reveal is great though. So what she does, because of what he did to her and took from her, she doesn't kill him. She doesn't take him out. She lets him live. But the way she lets him live is she plants the fruit, the seed.
So
that
the
she's kept
entire
with her
time
from her
she's
mother.
had a peach that she had not stolen, but taken off of a tree. And she's kept the pit so that they could plant it somewhere. They give all these different ideas of like what may have happened to Dementus, where she shoots him in the back of the head or she makes him walk the entire way. And our narrator says none of that is true.
We cut back to
what
the Citadel.
What she really did is she planted the pit in
his body.
Dementus's balls. Like that's
Basically.
exactly where it is.
and she
this
like chained him to the Citadel.
Oh, that's where seeds go.
That's exactly where
Seed,
that's
where
they
your-
come
yeah,
from.
Yes.
And we
come
see
from.
that this peach tree has grown out of his body while he's still chained up alive and has to live the rest of his
wild.
days.
It's
It's a
wild.
crazy ending.
Yeah.
And justice for this villain. It's-
Correct. And then this is where we get the basically a recap of Fury Road.
Well, and
Well,
it sets
of her-
it up
of her
right.
parts
to-
for Fury
and then
Road.
she's helping the mothers escape,
Right.
putting them into the rig, and
Yes.
and then you're like, oh,
And you
it's
hear her
Fury
voice,
Road.
I'm pretty
It
sure
is
that's
absolutely
Charlize.
Charlize Theron, yeah.
Because I was like, oh, and are we going to see her? But it's like just the back of the head. But
I honestly think the stuff that we see of her helping the mothers get into the rig is all stuff from Fury Road that we didn't see.
yeah, I think it's maybe
unused footage.
I agree. So I think it really is, and that's why it butts up so well because it's like literally is footage from that movie that
Yeah, George
transitions
Miller's like,
right
hey, did you
into
see
it.
Rogue One? You see how they did that
Well,
in Rogue
George
One?
Miller, like his wife is the editor, right, of his movies. So like he's
Oh, is
got
that
the
right?
footage. He'd be the guy that could get, B-roll from Fury
Sure.
Road. But yeah, this was awesome.
I thought it was.
It was a little long.
It's a little long.
I don't think this needed to be 2.5 hours.
I don't disagree.
Like, I think if this had been 2 hours, I would have liked it a lot more.
Yeah.
I just, you don't get these movies all the time. You got George Miller making a Mad Max movie with this much practical stunts. Like, I want to live in this world, and I don't know.
No, you don't. You would be.
Yeah.
No,
fodder.
definitely not.
Yeah.
But that's why if like I'm getting a movie every 10 years and who knows if they'll give them the money to make any others with this box office. It's like I want to spend as much time while I have the master making his work. And so I ate it up. I thought it was awesome. Then the thing is he has 2 more movies planned, and that's the sad thing is I don't know if they'll get made, but he wants a prequel from Max to see what he was
I'd be
doing.
all right with that. I'd be all right with like
Definitely,
a
but
cop Max.
will it get made? But
Yeah.
a prequel for Max that shows how it leads up to Fury Road, and then The Wasteland, which is a sequel to this. Or sequel to Fury Road, like what happens after all that. And unfortunately, opening 4-day weekend making 35 on a like $160 million
Yeah, I
budget.
think it's 168 according to Wikipedia.
I mean,
but what's 8 million among
Yeah,
friends?
right.
But Fury Road had a slow build. All this doom and gloom hopefully won't stop people from the coming weeks to go see it.
Right.
I hope it makes
There's
money.
nothing significant next week, right?
No.
Right,
There's-
right.
It's like,
Netflix
it's
movie?
like Lady in the Sea.
Oh,
Right.
Oh,
so
maybe.
maybe this thing will have some longer legs. People are going to enjoy their Memorial Day weekend and go, have a cookout or whatever, and then
Next
maybe
week, yeah.
maybe next week, without any real competition, maybe this can have some long legs. I mean, like I said, I have the same concerns you do as far as this is the type of film that theaters need to have right now. I mean,
Yeah,
with the
I
struggles that
agree.
they're having, this is the type of film that you need to have. It's not something that's overplayed like a lot of the comic book films, became. You milk that cow just maybe a little too hard. But it's still that big visual event that I don't care how awesome your TV is at home and sound system is at home, it's just not the same. But that's the same concern. It's like, he's got a couple more, in the bullpen warming up. Are they going to get the money? Are they going to be, are going to be given the opportunity to do this? At what point, do we have this shift, this tilt? And, the press is, not coming off real well with that. So I'm hoping that this is going to, people are going to hear, they're going to hear about it, they're going to hear the reviews, and they're going to be like, okay, look, we didn't go the first weekend. Maybe let's go ahead and go out there. Let's go check it out. Let's go maybe support this and, give the opportunity for more of this.
Well, they're certainly aided by the fact that they've already pulled Fall Guy, right? Like
Yeah.
there's-
Oh, yeah.
If that,
That'd be a practical stunt.
that would have been their competition
right?
for
Yeah.
sure.
And
I
maybe
think-
why they did.
And I
yeah.
think Fall Guy would have won that battle
Probably.
because I don't know. This has a female protagonist, but like if it's a date night, Fall Guy is also a rom-com.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
you know, but like I said, you have a female lead, so maybe that does fare a little better.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I hope.
So anyway, I guess that's it for this one. Let's go around the table and everybody can say where to find them.
This is Joe. You can follow me on the Twitter at JoeyButts, BUTTS21, and on Letterboxd at the same.
This is Kevin. Follow me on Twitter at Kevin R. Brackett.
And Scott, where can they find you and your wares?
Probably the best place, just go to my website. Everything's kind of in flux right now, but my website is my name, patrickscottpatterson.com. And I've got a lot of different things kind of in motion, kind of going through a little transitionary period as far as my business model and certain projects. But here over the course of the summer, I am going to be working on and preparing to launch my own podcast, and I will probably promote it a couple of times once I do. So, you go to my website and you can see, you go to my website and you can get the gist on everything that I've been a part of and will be a part of. And all my social links, active social links are there. So give me a follow, and I look forward to updating everybody once I have a few more things in motion and to getting that started. And I appreciate you guys having me on here today.
Well, we appreciate you doing it.
Yeah, it was
Yeah, it
awesome.
was great.
And check out, Scott's got a great eBay store. We got one, right?
Yeah. I've just cleared out a lot of older inventory, but that's still going to be going strong. I just got to get out and find the right kinds of things.
So definitely check out for your pop culture stuff, video games and these old magazines like we were talking about. I mean, he's got a ton of great stuff in the store still, so check it out.
Awesome. And you can find me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. You can find the show online at facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page and join the group. And, of course, don't forget our Patreon. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, Trace kills Scourge with Arlie's car.
Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, 'cause we already